Hello and welcome to the next video of our series on Bitcoin. I'm Garrett Konrad.
Mason Aubuchon.
And today we're going to talk about the most commonly asked questions that Mason and I are asked about Bitcoin, I guess cryptocurrency, but Bitcoin specifically. And so before we jump into it, I'll just give our quick disclosure. Of course, we're just two guys talking about ideas and sharing information. We're not recommending any specific investments. This is not designed to be specific investment advice. So if you're working with a professional or doing it yourself, of course, take that into account. We always recommend that you meet with a licensed professional to get specific investment recommendations before you jump into anything. With that, should we go ahead and tackle our first question?
Sure.
First question is, what is money?
So basically, starting back thousands of years ago, don't know the date, but
Probably safe to say civilization.
Sure.
Because
Sure.
Whether it was a bartering system or formal currency, from the beginning of time, we had to figure out some way of trade.
Right. Trade. I think money started as trade, and originally it was food, right? And I think that became something specific on a shoreline of shells, because the shells were useful for multiple things, and there was quite a few of them, but not too many. And it ended up getting the whole system broke down when a boat came in that had just plenty of these other shells. And it was basically just a flood of the market. Now one was only worth, 100 was worth one. And it was all crazy what happened there. So once the shells kind of fell off the wagon, then we moved into food, bananas, other items, basically substitution of the trade. Something that you can carry 10 of, but you're going to give them, trade them, share them, or actually consume them so they had value. And I think that's the big part, is it needs to have an intrinsic value to everyone, not just to me, not just to you, not just our group, but actually anybody that comes in can, physically eat and get that value. So we'll use the bananas as a good fun one.
Sure.
I think Mark Cuban at one point said he'd rather own bananas than Bitcoin. He's since then retracted that comment.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just a funny joke out in the space. And we moved from food to gold. Obviously, you can't carry that much food. And I think a big problem with it was the distance. So you got your 10 bushels or baskets of bananas, and you're going to take it 50 miles across the border and trade it for one cow or something else of value like that. Well, rich people, or maybe just standard people, lost their food. Standard.
I like standard
I don't
people.
know.
There's rich people and then there's standard people.
Just people. People lost money because the food rotted. It got stolen, or used. Maybe they set off on a journey longer than they anticipated, and they end up using it. And basically, they just realized that we need something in place of the food as money, so they needed that substitute. That's when gold and silver came into play, and at one point, I think it was just shapes. It was just pounded out shapes that were a rough weight or size, and if you had a certain size, it was about a certain weight, which bought you a cow or a bushel of something, or a castle if you had lots of them. And we molded from, I think, Roman times, somewhere right around there is when they actually started stamping coins, Caesar, and they, if you had Caesar's name or face on it, then your gold coin was valid. So it couldn't have been tampered with, and that's when the tampering of gold began, is people would just put on a thinner, maybe smaller, they would start adding the face, or chinking corners off of the ones that did have the face. So they'd still get a full value, but after every 10 they chinked, they could have another full one, put a face, and now they've just created out of thin air more money, which is basically inflation. Mm-hmm. And the blacksmiths were physically actually melting them, adding copper and silver, so they were perfect coins, but they were false. They were false. They had other metals in it. So that started to happen quite a bit, and there's something that happens in money over time, and it's happened forever, is good money drives out bad money. It's basically a fact at this point. We have history to show us that the good gold coins got hidden and stored under bed sheets, or hoarded, I guess would be a better word. And those cheap chintzy coins that were clearly altered became the transaction. And then you needed 10 of them to buy what one gold coin could, because everybody knew they were falsified. And I think that's where change came in. Not Obama's kind of change, physical coin change. So we moved from lots of coins, and the good coins were held. The true gold specimen was held. And again, kind of moving back up the ladder to people that were extremely wealthy, had so much of this gold that they couldn't even transport it. So you're transporting multiple loads of gold to get somewhere to buy something, and you're either getting robbed and losing a certain amount, or it's just too expensive to go buy something, physically transporting it. So that's when the notes started to come in, and it was transcripts at one point. It wasn't actually perfect currency bills as we have now. Do you know the exact first note that America had? Was it a treasury bill?
I actually do not know.
Yeah, I don't either. But anyway, we went from metal and coins to paper. There was a transfer period there where everybody trusted the true gold, but they're transacting in the cheaper coins. And at some point, somebody said, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to do bills, and you're going to accept my bill, and I'll either get you the coins later, or later you can give me that bill back, and I'll value it at the coins I owe you. And that was the beginning of paper money, basically a promise of future payment. I believe that's truly what it is, and it still holds the value if the promise holds value. And unfortunately, where we're at today, the notes or $100 bills don't hold the future value of payment as they used to. I think since the $100 bill was introduced, it's lost, and don't quote me on this, like 90-something% of its what 100 will buy. And so what happens? The number just goes up. Now it costs $60,000 to buy a new car, or whatever those ranges are. But it used to cost, I think, Henry Model T, the Ford, was like a couple of dollars, like maybe 90 or 100, something around there. I have to look that up. I want to know. But basically,
if you know, you can leave it in the comments, and you can totally correct us and teach us something.
So we adopted paper. Now paper's fully trusted, and we'll trust it till death, because here we are inflated into an insane percentage, an uncurable percentage of inflation, I would say. And so we haven't stopped using paper, because cash is king. That's the quote. Everybody knows it. And I would say it truly is. You will get a better deal on a lot of things if you can pay in cash or tip in cash. Probably specifically to avoid taxes. Is just the money still flows in circulation, similar to those notes used to, between people without the coins ever moving. So your numbers on your screen never move, but the notes do. But getting back into it, we've slowly changed from coins to paper, and now we're slowly in an adoption phase of changing from paper to numbers on a screen completely. Banks have accepted it, governments have accepted it, countries have accepted it, and now it's a purely normal thing to just send numbers to somebody, and now they have the value of the dollars. And so I think we're in a transition phase of realizing that those numbers on a screen can be printed by some special people called the government, or Fed, if you will, and we can't print any of it. So our numbers on a screen are incrementally going down, their numbers on a screen are incrementally going up, and the pay gap is it's dangerous. It's just unsafe. I think personally it's unfair. I mean, I don't like to be a unfair kind of guy, but hey, if you're cheating at the game, somebody's getting cheated out of.
Yeah.
And the people are getting cheated out of the numbers on a screen. And so I think that's why Bitcoin holds a value, is because those numbers on that screen cannot change. And a big one is they're not controlled. So it's verified, and we went over this in the last video of how it's verified. And if you own a certain amount, it's been verified by everybody, and you have it, and nobody else can print against it. So
yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that affects currency and like you're talking about what is money. And I just have a couple thoughts to add on that, if I can, because I was just having a similar conversation with somebody a couple weeks back, and we were talking about the change of money or currency over time. You've already alluded to it. You talked about shells, and you talked about food, you talked about gold. There was also livestock. There's been land. There's been other precious metals that have been introduced over time, like silver. There's been precious gemstones introduced. We got into the realm of stocks and buying equity in companies, which even that's changed. We used to have paper certificates. Now it's really hard. In most cases, you can't get an actual stock certificate. It is just a number on a screen of how many shares you owe, and even the value of those shares are a number on a screen. And so I've been wondering, like, what is that next thing? Because we've moved from whatever it is to livestock to land to precious metals to cash to stock certificates. And for the last 80 years or whatever, equities have been the number one wealth generation tool, I think, in the world, certainly in America. And so what is that next thing that we're moving into? Because also the frequency of turnover because of catalytic events, whether it's trust or it's just general culture or it's regulation or it's logistics, like you talked about transporting food and the logistics of that, and then gold, and it became the logistics of transporting gold. Now our logistics are like validating numbers on a screen, and maybe blockchain technology helps with that. And so the change seems to come faster and faster and faster, and now we've had equities be the number one wealth generation tool for years and decades. And what is that next thing that either culture or logistically will move into? And that's what really piques my interest with blockchain technology and Bitcoin. Is like, I'm not here to prognosticate and say that that's going to be the next greatest thing. It's just that is a wildly new idea, and we're probably due for a little shakeup and a little change in what we put value in and what we call money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're due for a change as well. And I'm just basically not going to get caught holding a bag of the wrong numbers on the screen or of cash, because we've seen in other countries, Venezuela and a couple other places, where the government inflates their currency millions of %, and you're spending $1 million to buy a cheeseburger or a loaf of bread, or you have to go across the border, a dangerous border, or just a busy border, to buy a loaf of bread and then walk 10 miles back because you don't have any money to buy gas in your location, and just so many other tangible problems that can all house of cards stack and fall down or burn quickly. And as our government changes how they achieve a solution for a mathematical problem like inflation, and we don't see the change, we can't follow the change. And so basically we just need a change of our own. So I think that's why Bitcoin is such a passionate topic for me. Is I don't really care about burning down the government as they're trying to do to us. I just want to make sure I'm not caught holding the bag of invaluable or intangible things. And an interesting thing about Bitcoin is it's completely intangible. So it's interesting that we're actually moving away from something tangible to something intangible like Bitcoin that you can't touch. A funny news story today, maybe some of you have heard it. Just yesterday, someone stole a Bitcoin ATM, trying to get the Bitcoins out of it. Awesome.
I did not read that.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny one. So anyway, all right, what's another question that we got?
So next is, we talked about what is money. So next, let's talk about where is Bitcoin.
Okay, so we hinted on it last episode. Basically, it's nowhere, it's everywhere, but mainly it's on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So
what a good ambiguous answer to open with.
If I just go as broad as I can, then no one will tell me I'm wrong. No. So it's not a thing. It's not tangible. When it's sent, it never really moves from my wallet to another wallet. It's just verified that the money left here, or the number left one wallet and now is at another wallet. The triple verification makes that a fact, an unchangeable fact. As we build into the future, more blocks get built on it, and basically the energy to work backwards is never going to be worth it. So the Bitcoin isn't technically stored anywhere. It's just there. It's quite a unique thing. It's a new concept, and it's very similar to the internet in technology. Where is the internet, right? I think that's just about the same question. It's kind of nowhere, but it's also clearly everywhere. It's through the air. You have it here. You can bring it right on over there, but nothing changed. So it's just kind of a unique thing. But there's lots of cool technical aspects to Bitcoin specifically that directly relate to the internet, like I can bring it across the border. So it is borderless. That's a huge use case for Bitcoin in other places, other countries, and mainly places like with really small countries on the map where you have to travel across multiple county lines.
Borders. Like, country lines.
Yep. And so there's different currencies on each side, right? Let's say you cross 3, 4, 5 different borders. Now you got to exchange your currency along one train ride just to be able to buy something at each stop. So Bitcoin gives you the option to, if Bitcoin's accepted in those places, of course, and we're getting there.
Yeah, it's expanding.
It's expanding at an extreme rate. Thousands of ATMs in the U.S. I think 10,000 now.
Really?
Yeah, big. I mean, there's small towns even. And the way they're doing that is just adding Bitcoin to the original ATM network, because all they need is the internet to get it there. So now it's just a word on the screen they add, Bitcoin, and a little bit of software. Now you're good to go. And they're charging exorbitant amount of fees. So don't buy Bitcoin on ATM, please. There's better ways to buy. But it's just adding on to the borderless, it's just a meaningful money. And the fact that it can be transferred across any line without any exchange rate, and honestly, you don't even need to bring the device with the Bitcoin on it. And this is where it gets pretty cool, because this is for people that may not own a computer, that may not own a cell phone, or like own a software device that you can physically transfer your Bitcoin onto. You don't need any of those things. You can buy Bitcoin and receive your private keys, which is a certain sequence of words, I think 20 words, in correct order. And if you remember those 20 words, you can go to any computer in the world, log on to your website, and type in those 20 words, and your coins will be right there. So now you can travel across a border that might be extremely dangerous of getting robbed, or it's a guarantee you're going to get robbed, and you can bring any amount of money.
It's like all intellectual property at that point. You have nothing physical on it.
Pretty unique.
Yeah,
so
that actually is interesting to me too. And do with this what you will, because I don't want to get into like a doomsday or like Big Brother conversation or anything like that. It's not that, but I've traveled internationally before, and have you ever noticed if you hold up a $100 bill, or I think there's multiple denominations that have this, but there's a little strip that goes through and tells you the value that goes all the way from one edge to the other edge. I'm told that is gold plated, and that it can be tracked using certain satellite technology, so that whoever this is, some government agency who monitors this stuff, cash movement, can actually monitor and track cash. And
wow.
That sounds really doom and gloom, but I've actually been in situations where I've been boarding airplanes for international trips, usually international projects where I'm carrying large amounts of cash, or people in my group are carrying large amounts of cash, and they've actually been stopped by like black suits, unidentified black suits on the jet bridge between stepping off the jet bridge onto the plane. Like someone comes out of that side door where they bring up strollers and stuff.
Creepy.
And like knew how much cash was on you, and that it was very close to the amount that's illegal to transport outside of the United States.
Yeah.
And like stopped to challenge that, and not necessarily like pulled us off the plane or anything crazy. They just asked for a verbal attestation that we weren't carrying more cash out than we were legally allowed to.
Yeah.
And
which
so
I believe it's $10,000 cash. Right?
obviously, yeah. So obviously there's some way of tracking that. And they're aware of that in a very odd way. And so the fact that it's totally intellectual and that it's in your head, that's
can't track that.
wicked cool.
Yeah.
Because I mean, not that I was up to anything nefarious or whatever, but in that case it was a missions trip, and it's like we're building a church or whatever, and it's expensive to do that. And so the project budget is split up across multiple people who are going on the trip. And we have to pool those resources when we get there to actually buy the materials to get the project done. And plus R&R and buying stuff for family on the way back and all that stuff. So that's what it's for. But also the idea of getting robbed and that kind of stuff, because that's also happened while we've been on international trips. It's just such a unique way to approach it. Very interesting.
It's different than has ever been possible.
Yeah.
So there's brand new technology right there.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Next question. Do you have to buy a whole Bitcoin?
Absolutely not. So Bitcoin is a fractional buy. You could buy 0.00001
Like a mutual
Satoshi,
fund.
or you could buy a full one. Sure, absolutely. I wouldn't suggest going all at one time. Definitely want a dollar cost average into those things. But as your dollar amounts increase, sure. You know, I think Elon bought like 6,000 at one time. And there's lots of ways to buy as well. So you got the ATM that we mentioned is like 8% ATM fee. Plus,
Holy cow.
Yeah, it's brutal. Plus your miner fee. And there was like one other small like a base transaction fee. It was $4 or something as well. So there's 3 fees wrapped up into that one. So I went to an ATM just to experiment. Just wanted to buy $100 just for fun. And after kind of logging into the app and doing all this extra work, wasn't too hard. Took me 10 minutes. Should have been prepared. I'm sitting there in a gas station, like look like a weirdo for 10 minutes. But I ended up not buying because it was so bad. I was gonna lose like 13% after all was said and done out of $100, and I was like, no, I think I can save my $13 and go buy Bitcoin at home. So lots of better ways to buy. However, there are some real unique aspects to physically buying Bitcoin. And I think this is going to jump ahead into our next question, but basically there's no minimum age to buy Bitcoin.
That was the next question. How old do you have to be?
So it's real basic. You don't have to be an age to use the internet either, right? So it's just that perfect little comparison of new technology being built on an already awesome technology. And not only do you not have a minimum age, but there's so many other limitations on being able to like open a bank account or something like that, where you have to have a credit score, you have to be established, you have to have
a social
active, they're a huge one, or just an email in order to like receive and send information in order to answer questions to get into a bank account. So all these loopholes are, or I guess all these tasks are now just totally taken out of the picture in Bitcoin. And this isn't for all the platforms that you can buy on or anything, but there is a specific way to buy Bitcoin where you don't even need a name. You don't even need to be a person. You can just acquire it. You don't even need a device to hold it, like we were saying.
Yeah.
So now you can buy it with nothing. And when I buy it with nothing.
Yeah, no like formal account setup type of thing. You're
Thank
just
you.
generating the key for and exchanging the value of
100%.
dollars for Bitcoin.
Yep. And then you can walk away memorizing your words, or maybe write your words down and memorize them over the next month, and then burn that piece of paper. And now you've just created wealth for yourself that can never be taken from you. Yeah. Of course, if the internet crashes, then everything's going to crash on with it. Now we're back into the doomsday situation. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter at that point.
Yeah. That's like people who ask me about like all the stocks that we invest in going out of business. I'm like, okay, we're investing in as much as 17,000 different companies. So if 17,000 companies go out of business, we have bigger problems. and I volunteer as tribute to be eaten first because I don't want to live in that world.
Yeah. So, adding on to that question, there's lots of other little guys on there. Like, there's no third-party risk in the transactions as well, especially if you're verifying your own transactions. So, when we're using a bank, I send you money, it goes either through our bank or from our bank, or both. And that's why cash, I think, has been the king for so long, is because you don't even need the third party, although we're still utilizing the trust of the third party. So although I hand you $100 and it's worth $100, neither one of us are the ones that are verifying that value. Somebody else is. So Bitcoin's kind of unique in that way that when I send you a number on a screen, everybody verifies it. Everybody that is in the network is verifying it. So it's just a system that's completely devoid of authority. There is no authority, but yet every single computer is full authority as well. It's pretty cool. I'm just overly fascinated with it as I dive deeper into specific topics. Just about every week I find something that's like awesome.
Yeah.
Way to go, Satoshi. Way ahead of me.
Cool.
So I did write down a fun little quote that we've been talking about speculation the last couple episodes and trying to identify what that looks like in a chart and kind of compared to a couple other companies, and just something that I came across as a little quote is I hope holds as much value for you guys as it does for me. And here it is. Education is more important than any speculation. And I kind of tried to think of a visual analogy for people to maybe put some validation to this. And so if you walked into a totally pitch black room and there's a white ball in there and I asked you to find it, you basically have your shot in the dark, a true shot in the dark of where it is. Could be hanging, could be posted to the wall, could be on the floor right in front of you. But if I snap the light on and snap the light off, you're going to have a much better, even if the light's off, now your shot in the dark is going to be pretty accurate. So I think that's kind of where we sit with the speculation is if you can just keep flashing that light and keep diving into where are you nervous in Bitcoin? Well, let's dive into it a little bit deeper. Let's try to flash the light for ourselves a little bit there and just keep getting closer to the target, because it's going to take some work to get there. But as you do more and more research, the speculation is just getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And soon you're going to know exactly right where that white ball is in that room. And you're going to be able to buy it without a 13% hit.
Yeah.
You know, there are places to buy it for 0% over the counter and make moves.
Yeah.
So
that's the idea of taking calculated risk, not just blind risk. And I get that question a lot too, because in traditional finance, we talk about risk versus reward and increases in risk and how much risk do I need to take and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know any business owner. I work with a lot of business owners, but I don't know any business owners who are like actively looking for more risk. No one's like, I want to take my business and I want to just find like the craziest, riskiest thing I can do. They're looking for calculated risks. They have an idea and they think that they can do it better or more efficiently or for a lower cost or whatever it is, and they run with that idea and they take a educated guess more than a gamble. But from the outside looking in, it feels like a gamble. And so that's where like speculation starts to end, is when you apply the education and the resources available to you, you can get more comfortable and a deeper understanding of what that risk is and what the trade-off between risk and reward is. And we could have all kinds of conversations about that and probably will in future videos. But it's calculated risk. We're getting out of the realm of speculation and into the realm of calculated risk.
Sweet. Well, hopefully we brought a little bit of value to you guys. And please add more comments, questions, and I'll do my best to research them and get the best possible answers out there as soon as possible, because we don't want you guys watching from the outside in and just seeing, either seeing the gains or just being too scared to introduce yourself to it. There's just, I think the community as well, the Bitcoin community as a whole, if you find somebody with Bitcoin, they'll give you some just to give you a little experience. I'll send you some just to show you how quick it is, pretty easy. Basically, if you can double click, I mean, you're there. You got it. So, and that'll hold true. If you guys want to come see me, meet up with me, I'd love to just send some Bitcoin to you. And that way, if you meet somebody that asks, you can go ahead and send a little bit to them as well. Just a couple bucks just to see and be a part of the network. And basically, it's just securing Bitcoin more and more. The more transactions we do, the more secure it is.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for watching, everybody.
See you next time.